In October 2007, the Pentagon announced a program called the Human Terrain System that will place social scientists in combat troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. Why does the military want anthropologists to help with counterinsurgency? How exactly will anthropologists be doing this? Is this ethical for anthropologists to do? This segment will explore some of these questions.
There are a number of codes of ethics that apply to anthropologists, but the primary code of ethics for anthropologists in the United States is the Code of Ethics of the American Anthropological Association, which provides a set of standards and guidelines and codes of conduct for all anthropological research and professional activities that anthropologists would carry out. The code calls on anthropologists to first, like doctors, do no harm to the people with whom they work and to any human beings.
The fundamental ethical questions have to do with things like meaningful, voluntary, informed consent. Military doesn't really have to worry about these sorts of things, but social scientists do. So there are big questions about how an environment, with so many weapons, so much armament going on, people are being interviewed and asked things, and the notion that they can just say no and not talk to somebody, that's not a concern in a military context. It's a fundamental concern for social scientists.
Human terrain teams violate the Anthropological Code of Ethics in several ways. First and foremost, human terrain teams are providing assistance to combat troops. That is, they're providing assistance to troops whose job it is, unfortunately, to kill other human beings. The code is also violated in that anthropologists are de facto or de jure carrying out secretive or covert work, in that they're not making known to the people they're working with the full reasons for conducting the research and conducting the work, and the ways in which the work is going to be used by the military. Finally, the code is violated in that anthropologists participating in the human terrain teams are endangering the work of anthropologists everywhere. Every anthropologist could be presumed to be a spy or a military operative when you have anthropologists working openly for the military in this fashion. There are a number of deeply undesirable and dangerous consequences that the military is not talking about when they are promoting the work of human terrain teams. And largely the military has been talking about the ways in which anthropologists are saving lives and participating in reconstruction efforts and reconciliation efforts, but they're also assisting in combat operations. They're assisting in the taking of other human lives. There's been a lot of attention in the media to one anthropologist in particular working in Afghanistan, who goes by the name Tracy. She doesn't provide her full name, and will not be photographed or have her image reproduced. The military has presented her work as being that of speaking to Afghans, creating better relationships with Afghans. However, when you look more carefully at what's been presented in the media, you see that she's also speaking to Afghans about where Taliban forces are. This is information that she's passing along to her supervisors, her superiors in the military, with unknown consequences for the people she's speaking with. It's likely that they might suffer retribution.
On our panel today, raised some questions about Tracy, the anthropologist you depict in your story, and her last name was withheld for security reasons. With the Afghanis that she's dealing with, do they know her full name? Does it seem pretty transparent for them, or does she also go just by her first name?
I don't think she gave her full name, but I think she does identify herself as an anthropologist. I saw her briefly. But I don't know, what she does at all times. She personally actually chose to carry a weapon for security. That's not a requirement for members of the teams, I've been told. And she wore a military uniform, which would make her appear to be a soldier to Afghans that she wasn't actually speaking with.
One of my biggest concerns, again, I do lots of historical work, comes out of looking at all the disasters that happened in World War II, many of which are being, recreated now. And there's a great quote that comes from anthropologist Alexander Layton, who worked for the Office of War Information and the War Relocation Authority, where anthropologists made all sorts of policy recommendations that in hindsight looked very, very wise. But they were ignored, and he wound up saying, administrators use anthropologists like drunks use lampposts for support rather than illumination.
Sadly, anthropologists have had a long and tragic history of collaboration with militaries and colonial and occupying forces for over a century. During World War II, anthropologists unfortunately assisted with the interning of Japanese American and Japanese citizens on the West Coast.
Looking at how in the 1960s, American anthropologists unwittingly conducted CIA-funded research. They didn't know it was CIA funding that was used to write the 1962 or 3 Kubark interrogation manual. So in the past, there has been some work.
Most recently, we see that the work of anthropologist Raphael Patai and his book, The Arab Mind, has likely been misused and appropriated by military interrogators and used in the work of torturing captives to obtain information from them. There's this flawed assumption, unfortunately, that if only we have anthropologists there to help us better know Iraqi and Afghan culture, we might win. When people around the world have finally understood that there is no military solution, that there only can be political and diplomatic solutions.
My concern is that there's this cherry picking that's going on. Of course, it's coming very late in the game, and of course there were people arguing against, the very poor policies that got us into this mess. I think it's very convenient, for the military to now stand up and use very certain types of anthropology, very limited sorts of views to deal with the current problem, and not to bring in people that would do things very, very differently.
The military and the media want us to see this picture of anthropologists increasing cultural sensitivity and saving lives. The reality is what they're not showing us, and that's that anthropologists are providing direct assistance to combat troops to better know their enemy and to better kill their enemy. The words of Assistant Deputy Undersecretary of Defense John Wilcox were starkest when he said, "The work of anthropologists enables the entire kill chain in the global war on terror. Anthropologists are assisting in the work of killing." Anthropologists shouldn't withdraw, but instead should engage critically with the military. They could be working on policy issues, but they absolutely shouldn't be involved at a brigade level where they're assisting in the work of combat troops whose job it is to kill other human beings. Instead, they should be engaged in policy debates and critically analyzing the work of the military and the interventions in Iraq and Afghanistan, the ongoing occupation of the two countries. And they should be working to try to find political, diplomatic, economic solutions to those wars that would prevent further killing and save lives, truly save lives, by bringing the wars to an end. There are a number of things that anthropologists and others can do to speak out against anthropological work with the military and human-trained teams in particular. First of all, they can not take jobs with human-trained teams. They can, secondly, speak out to other students, to the public at large, through op-eds, through speaking appearances, and any other opportunity to say, this is strategically wrong-headed. This is wrong for anthropologists to do. It's extending the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, not saving lives. It's making possible the taking of more human lives and perpetuating violence in Iraq and Afghanistan, rather than working to find political, diplomatic, economic solutions that will bring the wars to an end and ultimately save lives.